Thank you for welcoming me onto your screens, onto your headphones, no matter how you're watching this. I'm Mehdi, and this is The Rollback. Folks, I'm here to talk to you today about Any Given Sunday, aka the most 90s movie ever made.
Any Given Sunday.
So, 4 years ago, 4 years before the movie was made, Tony led the Sharks to win the Pantheon Cup, this world's version of the Super Bowl. Now, 4 years later, the team is staggering on the verge of a losing season. Attendance is down, everyone's sliding, Tony's in a downward spiral, and the daughter of the owner, the owner passed away, the daughter took over. She's on the warpath. She's trying to kind of clear shop while making room for the new. Also, Tony is also trying to balance the fact that he has a very tumultuous relationship at home. He's divorced, he's estranged from his children, he's trying to manage a football team. They have an aging quarterback in Cap, they have a young hotshot in Willie B. There's just a lot going on in this film. So real quick, the pros. Let's get it out of the way. That speech is iconic, and if you don't know that speech, it's this one.
That's the team, gentlemen. Hell yeah. And either we heal now as a team, or we will die as individuals.
Right? Like, it kind of makes you want to get up and fight. But it is an incredible speech, an iconic speech at that. And cards on the table, I knew that speech before I'd ever seen the movie. I'd heard about the movie, I'd seen bits and pieces of it, but I never really bothered to sit down and watch it. I just knew that speech was insane. But the movie, there's a lot more to it than that. First things first, this film, like, it balances so many different storylines. From Tony being the head coach, trying to manage this team. And bear in mind, in the NFL, when you're the coach, you're not just managing the players on the field, you have to manage these guys off the field. You have to manage their personalities, their personas, the manner in which they are, their egos. You have to deal with leadership. You have to deal with the GM. You have to deal with the head doctor. You have to deal with the owner, and that's no easy feat. And Tony is a bit older. He's won, I think, 2 Pantheon Cups, but she's very adamant that he's on his way out for the new blood. On the other side of the coin, we have Christina, played by Cameron Diaz. By the way, Tony D'Amato, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. He's played by one Al Pacino, and he's awesome in this role. Amazing. Christina is played by one Cameron Diaz, and she's a person. Because see, here's the thing. The easy perception is to say, oh, well, she's a woman, that's why she's bad. No, by no means am I stating that. I'm saying she's a young kid, and I would say this for male or female, I don't care. She's a young kid who's trying to change the game and do things their way. And like anything, when the new blood comes in, there's gonna be some rubbing of shoulders in the wrong way. It happens with anything. Anytime new blood comes in, whether it's sports, business, movies, in any capacity. Hell, music. How many times have we heard the new music today isn't as good as the old music? It's a thing that happens. That said, though, she's kind of mean about it. If she was a guy, I'd call her an asshole. Like, to be fair, you know, this dude did win you 2 championships. And he did have a close relationship with your father. There could be that respect there. I'm just saying. That said, though, she's also trying to move the team, the Sharks, from Miami to potentially LA, kind of working a backroom deal with the mayor, saying either you pay for our new stadium or we're going to go to LA. But she needs it to be a winning season, so she comes down hard on Tony. The third character, I'd argue, would be Willie B. Or Beeman. That would be Jamie Foxx's character. And his arc, he's basically a young male. In college, he was a quarterback who was turned into a cornerback, which is a completely different position. He got murdered there. But he says that people treated him differently because of his skin color. You know, they don't like African-American quarterbacks. At the time, African-American quarterbacks are seen as dual threats, which is a liability because dual threats mean you like to run. I'm sorry, I'm using some football analogies here. So in college, he was kind of relegated to a cornerback, and he got smoked. He was like a 7th round pick in the NFL draft, or in the draft with the Sharks and whatnot. Lost millions, because if you know the NFL draft, you know The difference between a first round pick and even like a number 7 pick is millions. That's $2 to $3 million. Let alone going from the first round all the way to the 7th round. That's a lot of money that you're losing. And he feels like he's been unfairly represented. He's a third string quarterback. It's, I think, 5th year as a backup? But Cap goes down, and that's another storyline. But concentrate really be for a sec. He's a young kid who becomes the quarterback for the Sharks. He's young, he's exciting, but also it kind of gets to his head. You know, he doesn't really earn the respect of the guys. He just expects them, you're going to follow me because I'm the quarterback. No. Respect goes both ways. At one point, Freddie pointed this out to me, during a scene in the director's cut, he starts shit-talking the defense at the defense's own house, like in one of the players' houses. So they go out and they cut his car in half. And they tell him, you're going to learn, young buck. Like, you're going to learn. And again, it's the young trying to ruffle the feathers of the old. I don't blame Willie B for being passionate, but at the same time, there's a maturity level you need to have there. Speaking of young versus old, there's 2 other players I want to comment on. One is Cap Rooney. He is played by Dennis Quaid. He's the aging quarterback who's won 2 rings already. He's trying to stay in the game, but he has maybe the most tragic arc in the film. He, at one point, says, I think this is going to be my last year. And he's talking to his wife. He's like, I'm having memory gaps. I'm having trouble remembering the kids' names. And when I hold a spoon, my hand shakes. I can't continue. And the wife slaps him and says, you have at least 2 to 3 years left in you. Don't be a pussy. I leave her, man. Leave her. Like, that's... You're talking about your health. And she wants glory. And then she has the audacity to freak out when he gets a concussion later on in the film. And she's crying, going, oh my god. You pushed him there. I'm just fucking saying. Lastly, though, I want to talk about Shark. He's not one of the main characters, but Lawrence Taylor. He's played by Lawrence Taylor. He's a defensive player. He's seen as, for his own words, kind of the Ray Lewis of the team. He's the heart and soul of the defense. But he had a neck injury that didn't properly heal. So one wrong hit, he could be paralyzed from the waist down. It could cause a major injury. The doctor, James Woods, hides that from Tony. And Cameron Diaz is basically saying, like, use them up. Like, they each got 1 good year left in them. Fuck it, let's use them. Put them back on the free market. Or they can sign with us for less. She's a monster. I mean, at one point, she's talking with the other owners, and one of them even says, like, that woman would eat her own young if she had to. Which is kind of indicative, but maybe that's just me. Anyway, this guy, he's one bad injury away from being paralyzed from the neck down, but he wants to hit his bonus for $1 million for an extra tackle. There's that. There's LL Cool J, who also wants his signing bonus. I think it's $2 million if he hits like at least 2,000 running yards. Which again, I get it, but like the health of the team versus your money. But also that's your money. If you go down, the team's not going to take care of you. It's just, there's a lot of plate spinning. And this kind of gives an idea into what the NFL might be like. Bear in mind, I've never been in the NFL. But I have no doubt that the pressures that these guys were under are the same pressures that the NFL coaches, the NFL players are under as far as performing even when you're not 100%. We just saw in the Super Bowl, Patrick Mahomes had a high ankle sprain. He took a cortisone shot. All of a sudden, dude's running out there like crazy. He won a 2nd ring. He legitimized himself with a 2nd Super Bowl ring. But at what cost to his physical health? How many more years does he have left now after that injury? Maybe he'll continue to play for another 10, 15 years. Maybe I'm completely wrong. I don't know. But the physical cost is something that you have to respect, or at least something you have to understand coming into the game of football. That said, though, the pros. So this movie, a lot of storylines, very intricate, well shot for the most part. Solid musical score. The scenes really get you pumped up. At one point, they have like a Mortal Kombat knockoff during the final game, which is pretty great. And we get that last speech. And then it's almost symbolic because at the end, right before, at the big game, the last game, Rooney, the quarterback, the senior quarterback, he returns for 2 quarters of a game. He gets a touchdown to kind of, close the gap right before the half. He goes down and he's out. Then Shark, on his side, makes a big stop. But he gets injured, and now he's out. So I think it's a little symbolic, the fact that both players, the face of the offense and the face of the defense, both go out in the same game. And the Sharks end up winning the game against Dallas. Good for them. But they lose the Pantheon Cup to San Francisco. Fair enough. That said, maybe the best part might be the very end when Tony's being forced to retire. But he announces on the back end he's not retiring. He's going to go be the head coach for the Albuquerque Aztecs, a new expansion team. And he's taking star quarterback Willie B with him. Cameron Diaz thinking that they already had him on lockdown. That was a fucking mistake. And it's so satisfying because it's like, she was mean and then she lost. But this movie, it feels like it's something right out of the real world. It feels raw and emotional in all the other ways. It's the exact opposite of The Replacements. And I'm not saying it's not entertaining. I'm just saying it's insane. So cons for this movie. Personally, it's a little too much style and jump cuts for me. This movie kind of reminds me, it's stylized kind of like Elvis, where you can tell it's very much a product of its time. It's a 90s movie. They have like real sideways cuts, jump cuts. They don't focus in. There's like random little tidbits of information that could happen. It's a little weird. It's not for everybody. It's a little jarring, and I can guarantee you the casual movie fan might not like this movie. Football fans will, though. They can appreciate this. You can read the defenses. You can understand what's going on. When they're talking about it, like, at one point, Tony's talking to Willie B when they're about to go out for the second half of the big game, and he says, read the defense. That's the main thing. You read the defense. If their hands are back, you know they're going to rush. If their hands are forward, you know they're going backward. Like, little things like that the average person won't understand, but if you love football or you know a lot about it, you can understand everything that they're saying. You can read it, and it's that much more entertaining, and I appreciate that. That said, though, for the grade, I'm going to give this film an A-. Very entertaining film. I'll probably watch it again. To quote Fernie, it's a great TV movie, but also it's just a great film in general. That said, how do you feel about Any Given Sunday? Go ahead and comment down below. Did you like the Super Bowl? Are you looking forward to the XFL? I know I am. That said, I've been Eddie, and this was The Rollback. We'll see everybody